everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to this week's Weekly Energy Boost. My name is Elisheva, and I am here with David.
Hello.
And we are here to share with you how to use this week in the best way possible. Our egos are going to be flailing, if they're not already, after needing to stay at home and not having anything else to do, with the pressures of everything going on in our world today, and the fears and the anxiety and the worry and the, what do they call it when you're stuck at home? When you're stir crazy, right?
Cabin fever.
This cabin fever, right? This would be happening anyway in one form or another. We want to share with you over the next 45 minutes or so the best way to take advantage, to ride the waves. You know, I'm reminded of the explanation that the Kabbalists use to understanding, you know, the times that we're in, or even how to navigate. Every week has its own unique opportunities. That's what we share on the Weekly Energy Boost. You know, imagine yourself a farmer, and you want to make the maximum yield from your farm. You have to study the weather, you have to know the soil, you have to be able to, come rain or shine, be able to take care and tend to your crops. We don't want to plant our seeds in the snow. So studying this wisdom really helps us to understand this is the week to fill in the blank. We'll fill in the blank momentarily. But by understanding the ebbs and flows in energy, you conserve your own energy and resources. You push in the right times and you rest in the right times, the same way that a farmer needs to do on their soil, and therefore experience the most valuable fruits of your labor that you can. That's the
value of this show, that you can come check in, even if you only hear 5-10 minutes of the show, to know what energy is existing universally for all of us. Being armed with that wisdom is just going to help you make better choices, not to make mistakes that ultimately take hours, days, sometimes weeks or months to undo or to fix. It can be one little secret you learn about how to deal with your relationship at home, and it will cause you not to say something that would cause major problems, or not to make a poor decision in your business. So all of these things we're bringing to you on this show based on the wisdom of Kabbalah, universal spiritual principles of the soul, and what the energy of this week is, plus what's happening in society. So we're kind of combining all of these things into one for you.
Right. And you may know people who need a message of inspiration, some way to ride the waves, right? You know, if you were a surfer, you'd know when the right time is to catch that wave. We're here to share with you how to surf the energy of this week. And if you know somebody who's struggling, you can share the show with them now. You can click share. You can forward the link to them. We're on we're everywhere you find your podcast. So whatever way works for you, but take a moment, share the show, and help somebody else ride the wave that they're going through now.
All right. So what are some secrets we're going to give our audience right now? What do you have in line for them for this energy?
Well, we are in the middle of the month of Aries. We spoke the last couple of weeks about how the month of Aries is the seed, really a seed level for this year. And the Aries is represented by the ram, right? Mm-hmm. The constellation, the zodiac sign is the ram. And if you know the animal, right, they're into headbutting and being first. The Kabbalists talk about this time as we're all Aries now, right? Mm-hmm. Which means that we're all sort of blatantly egoistic. Now, egoistic doesn't mean proud. I know for a lot of people, when you hear the word ego, you think of pride. Kabbalistically, the ego is anything that isn't creator-like, anything that isn't our soul. So according to Kabbalah, we have two parts. We are both our soul, and that's 99% of us. But then we also have this force that we call the ego, or the opponent, the other team that we play against. That voice, I'm sure many of you have seen cartoons where you have the devil on one side and the angel on one side that looks like Mickey Mouse or whatever. That battle takes place during us all the time. And that battle is highlighted this week. The ability to distinguish the guy in red from the guy in white is greater this week. And what we want to talk about is how you can distinguish, how you can recognize those parts of us and let them go. This is actually the week that, sometimes we talk about the Bible as a roadmap, a code, the original ways, but very cryptic, the coding of ways, not the actual application. And during this week's energy, we have the Exodus from Egypt. So the Kabbalists talk about Egypt as the ego. It's not a country. It is a country, but in the biblical sense, it's a code for anything that's limiting us. And so we want to leave Egypt this week. So the question is, what is your Egypt? What is your ego? How can you recognize those behaviors and those traits that you want to leave behind? Because this week you can leave those things behind.
Those of you who have studied our beginning classes of Kabbalah know that the purpose of life and why the soul comes to this world is that there's basically two realities that we talk about in Kabbalah. It's the reality before life began and a spiritual reality that we call the endless, where it says that the Creator created us to receive all of its beneficence, all its pleasure and happiness and fulfillment. And it says that there was a reality where we had all this energy. But we, as the souls, wanted to earn and have that feeling of earnership to maximize the fulfillment. So we asked for a world filled with darkness where we're all separated from our soulmate. We're separated from our true passions in life. We're separated from clarity, and oftentimes we find ourselves in darkness and confusion and chaos. The point of the chaos, the point of the darkness, the point of the pain is to give a space for us to have the free will to choose between light and dark, which is what Elisheva said. So how does that darkness manifest? So the Kabbalists say very simply, your soul came to this world with spiritual baggage. Many people call that the ego. We're going to break that down today to understand what that means. But if you're in this world, if you're donning a body, if your soul has a body, it means that you have something you have to correct about yourself. And sometimes it's very evident, and it's evident to everybody around you, and sometimes it's very sneaky, and it's a hidden thing that requires correction. And by correcting it, you're revealing that light of the Creator that your soul was meant to reveal in this world. That's your free will. Your only free will, actually, is are you going to break your fears? Are you going to transform your ego, which we're going to break down right now? Or are you not? It's your only free will, only choice in life is that. You actually don't have a choice with the people you date and who you marry and your job, and all these things are already actually pre-written in basically infinite movies that you can choose. The only free will you have is when pain comes, are you going to be reactive to that pain, or are you going to do what we learn here on the show and in the wisdom of Kabbalah? You're going to transform your reactive nature at that moment by pausing and transforming your mindset around it.
Which is how you get to a better movie.
That's the only way to shift up or down in this elevator of life.
Right. And the paradox is the ego is making illusionary movies, giving you, I made a list of the way that I would say that the ego is like this master movie production company that wants you to invest in and believe in something that's false. And that's how we get into making the decisions that don't serve us, is where we see a fearful movie. We see a movie that we're worried about. We see a movie that we're no longer needed or valued or necessary. And so we make decisions out of lack and fear and not out of expansion and growth. And then we find ourselves in a deeply downgraded movie.
So give us some examples. What do you have on your list? I want people to get pinpoint examples so they can relate to in their lives.
Okay, so for me, I think the biggest fallacy produced by the ego is that I am my behavior, right? That if I make a mistake, I'm a terrible person. Okay. When I say the wrong thing, I'm an idiot.
So we're starting with this. This is good. We're going to start with this one.
That, to me, people believe that they are bad or that they are damaged or that there's no hope or that...
Why do they believe that?
Because the ego makes us think that we are what we do.
So I make a mistake. Let's say I hurt someone. I heard maybe person is unfaithful to a friend, partner. You've hurt this person, obviously an egregious betrayal of trust. Now, who am I? Am I the person am I a horrible person? Am I a good person who just did a horrible thing? How am I supposed to handle this feeling I have now that I hurt someone and they're carrying this hurt for the rest of their lives, most likely, and now the relationship will never be the same?
Well, I'll bring it down to a child level.
Okay.
When our children make mistakes, and I don't know if you've gotten the chance to see this with your own kids, but when a child makes a mistake, they often go to, I'm terrible, you don't love me, and I would say the modern parenting consensus is you repeat to them over and over again, I love you, I don't love your behavior.
That's nice.
I love you, but I don't love this anger, or I don't love these words you're using, or I don't love you punching a hole in the wall or whatever, coloring on the wall. Let's make it a little bit more benign. I don't love coloring on the wall, but I love you very much.
It's still painful to hear that, right? Even as a child or as a parent. Of course. Everyone.
Of course. The difficult thing about acknowledging, observing, recognizing, and then working to transform the ego is that separation. Those labels that I've given myself all this time, I'm just an angry person or I'm just a control freak. No, you're not. Right. Right? That I think is the greatest step that any of us can take this week if we separate ourselves from that virtual reality suit of the ego that makes everything seem real. And that's the hard part, is recognizing, yeah, I made a mistake, but that's not who I am. That is a choice that I made, and I cooked it. Therefore, I can also clean it.
All right. So basically what you're saying is what we're saying is separate your results and the actions you make that cause those results from determining who you are. And I think Kabbalah talks a lot about this, about being in two places at the same time. That no matter what happens outside of you, what anybody writes about you, whatever they say about you, whether everyone in the world likes you or doesn't like you, do you have the strength and ability to make a decision about who you are and connect to the real, the spark of the light of the Creator inside of you? So for example, let's give people a baseline. What are we at our essence? We are beings that are unique. We are beings that have an incredible power to share and add value. We are beings that have unlimited power and resources inside of ourselves. That's the baseline, all of us, okay? Now, obviously 7 billion people don't feel that way about themselves. And even the ones who do think that they're amazing, deep down inside, there's parts of themselves that they think is horrible. So that's your baseline. Now, let's say 7 billion people all write an article about you and say how horrible you are. How do you handle that, right? Do you have the strength and the power to say, okay, 7 billion people think I'm horrible, but Kabbalah tells me that I'm powerful, I'm amazing, I have
light.
I have the light of the Creator inside of me, I'm unlimited. So how do I reconcile? It's very hard to reconcile that. I mean, one person speaking bad about us is enough to ruin weeks of emotion for us. But imagine 7 billion people. And this is the strength that is available for all of us. Because when we say the ego, we're talking about, do you want the strength that no matter what happens in your life, you can still feel positive, infinite, and powerful while simultaneously learning whatever lesson you need to learn? Because if 7 billion people don't like you, there's probably a lesson to be learned, right? So I would
probably.
Right? I would want, if 7 billion people wrote, you're horrible, I would want to reply all on the email. All right.
Tell me more.
I don't know what service can handle 7 billion emails, but
soon.
And they'll probably it's a spam complaint. But I would write back, no problem. I'm totally with you. Can you break down for me things that I can do or change so that I wouldn't be, quote, horrible, while simultaneously realizing you're powerful and you're infinite? So can you hold those two things at the same time? Because I think a lot of times what happens is when people are saying, oh, no, I'm powerful, Kabbalah says I'm powerful, then they shut down and they don't want to hear any feedback. That's a problem. And then there's people who take all the feedback and get depressed. That's a problem. You got to be powerful and hear the feedback.
Right.
That's the power of this week. That's what we can internalize and download.
Not only that, look at this time period that we're in, where so many of us are staying home, not doing anything unessential. The actions that define us or determine our worth and our value are taken away. Right? We are in a really unusual time in history where so much of how we calculate our worth is on hold.
Right.
And we have to reflect on what's really important and what value I truly add if I'm not able to show up at work, if I'm not able to take care of my parents, if I'm not able to take my kids to their 80 extracurricular activities and be super mom.
Am I a bad mom?
Right. So imagine how I see it as a gift to be able to cut out the chatter, the nonsense, the busyness this week, and really be able to focus on. I mean, I know for a lot of people, the requirement of staying home, that stillness, even though there's stuff to do at home and, there's no shortage of things to watch on Netflix, there are definitely ways to be distracted.
Right.
There's definitely less distraction when you can't get out of your house and, shop or go to the movies or do whatever it is that we're conditioned to do when we don't like what's going on.
Yeah, it's important to pay close attention to aspects of yourself that you're noticing now that the energies we're used to holding on to and we're probably addicted to and we're probably filling some kind of a void are no longer there. Because eventually we're going to go back to normal or some version of normal. And we're going to go back to our sources of energy. And this is a monumental time to ask, what is it that I've been hiding behind this whole time? Let me clean it out. It's kind of like there's a surgery happening and the doctor's kind of like open you up. And if there's any cancer cells in there, he can take it out. Because eventually we're going to suture you back up and we're not going to have that opportunity anymore. And right now, we're all surgically open. The spiritual doctor is looking inside of us and saying, okay, is there anything in here you want me to take out? So don't run away from it. Don't even make yourself too busy. I have people writing to me about how they feel sad and depressed. And these are people who were so positive. And now all of a sudden they went to the opposite spectrum of sadness. How can it be? It means that whatever they were doing, even if it was under the guise of being positive or productive, it was also feeding them. So it was an external energy that was supporting them. It wasn't an internal energy that they built, which we all need to build. We need to build the self-esteem and the self-confidence. And that's kind of the mantra we said earlier, which is, I'm powerful and perfect. However, I have lessons I need to learn and I want to transform. You got to be in these two places simultaneously. It's the only balance.
Right. And so that whole email chain that David was talking about, right? If we can look at even 1% of every one of those emails, right? Yeah. One remotely potentially true detail in those emails, you start to realize that there was some sort of divine purpose in the mistake. It happened. I had an opportunity to do something. Now this whole scenario is happening for me, right? What can I change? How can I grow? That there, yes, given the opportunity again, I would do things differently. But now that I'm in the midst of this, how can I grow and change from this? That is the anti-ego, I would say, of, making a mistake, doing something wrong, being quote unquote bad.
All right. So we'll give some tools now of how to achieve this perfect balance of feeling infinite while still having the humility and desire to want to change and to listen to people's feedback. Number one, what we've learned in our study of Kabbalah is constant actions and effort in life is so important. And the more you can make effort in every part of your life, that's how you build self-esteem and that's how you build your soul. Because if you're just intellectually thinking about who you are and who you can be, you're never going to internalize that. So what's an example of that? You're never going to know how strong you are physically unless you make that effort to practice for a marathon or to do things that challenge you physically. That's the only way to internalize it. Even if everyone in the world said you're amazing, you still wouldn't fully believe it until you made the effort. So the question is, where in our life can we make an effort? I know some moms that are, they've been telling me that they've had to step it up 10x and make an effort that's uncomfortable and be incredibly present with their children and be the teacher, the mom, the housekeeper, the everything at once. and what happens is they felt this lack of confidence. Before they thought, there's moms who actually think that they're stupid and they don't want their kids to know how stupid they are. Now they have to actually teach the curriculum, right? The homeschool. And now they're like worried that the kids are going to see how stupid they are. So all of this is just garbage and gunk that we have inside of ourselves, that we make the effort, uncomfortable actions that are positive, uncomfortable actions that we know are good for us. Whatever is uncomfortable, that is that it's positive, and deep down inside you should be doing it. That's how you take advantage of the energy of this week. It's not going to just happen because you heard this weekly energy boost. It's going to happen by you making uncomfortable decisions, difficult decisions that you know are positive. That's what creates the vessel to capture the energy.
I think it's actually interesting to mention in this moment that Kabbalah teaches that when kids, until a certain age, we all operate purely from the ego, purely from the aspect of us that wants to take, that is afraid, right, that doesn't have that higher attachment to the higher self. And we're really programmed from day one of life to believe and to trust that voice more than the voice of our soul. We are accustomed to following the voice that says, this isn't fair, everyone's against me, I can't even think of a better way to say it, that bombardment of judgmental thoughts and perceptions, so that when, here you come across the wisdom of Kabbalah, you hear this podcast and you say, wow, that's really interesting, or that's great. And an hour later, you're back listening to the cassette of this isn't fair, everybody's against me, et cetera, and so forth. The fact that we're being now isolated, and that we have so much more, even if you are the school teacher, the cook, the cleaning person, like you have all these roles that you have to embrace fully and can't outsource right now.
Right.
In my perspective, anything inside the home, anything that's not public, right? You can't run to the office. Like I shared a few weeks ago, when I see how disorganized my house is, I like to run to the office where everything is organized. And, all I'm responsible for figuring out is, which email to answer first. But that realization that the universe wants me to focus on this now and isn't giving me another choice. I think that in years past, we may have had the choice. Oh, I'm too busy at work. I can't do this right now. Or, I have a class to teach. And we still continue to teach classes, but that, the universe is almost holding the gun to our heads and saying that you must do this now. You must clear out the clutter, the garbage, the crumbs of, you may even be noticing old habits coming up in this time period, the last few weeks. And it might even continue, because we're moving into, beginning on Friday, we're moving into this period of tests. This, 7-week exam period.
Omer.
It's called the Omer. And I also wrote a list of areas in which we may be tested. And you could easily say, well, don't be negative, don't project. When, again, looking at what we're sharing with you, this is like, what was the big book of map that we used to have when we were younger in the car? Do you know what I'm talking about? Oh, man, somebody better write it on the chat. That we used to have this huge, what? No, it was like a bound, thick, I can't remember the name of the map. Anyway, that's what Kabbalah is, right? So you could look at your life and say, well, I'm going to drive cross country and I will not cross a mountain. Well, guess what? You don't get to choose if there's a mountain in front of you or not. If the creator put a mountain there, is it Rand McNally? I don't think it is. There was another, it is? I'm thinking of something else then. Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm dating myself now.
Where you going here, Elisheva? Where you go? Bring it back. Get on that map. Get that map here.
Squirrels. Okay.
Thomas Guide?
Thomas Guide. That's what it was.
Right,
Thank you so much, Ezra. Thomas Guide. So back to the point. You don't get to decide if there's a mountain in front of you. Kabbalah is saying, listen, there's a mountain here. This is the best route to getting across the mountain range. Or, you know, this you can take a tunnel or a bridge. Take the tunnel, not the bridge. And when we share these things with you, it's not only we read it, believe us, it's we've been living this for 20, 30 years. It works without fail. The students that we talk to, that we work with on a daily basis, the thousands of students we've worked with all these years will attest to it. It is true and accurate. So knowing that we're going to have a period of tests. What is a test according to Kabbalah? You've been growing, you've been changing. Did it stick? Are you really different? Or was it just a rehearsal?
Okay, so I want to actually address what you just said too. There was one question here. I'm gonna write that down here. What are you the same, or was it just like a rehearsal? I like that. Same or rehearsal. Now, someone just wrote here, is Satan the ego? You know, we talk about Satan, not to scare people, that the Kabbalah say that there's a force that comes to this world to challenge us to be our opponent. Maybe that's a better word. The Bible gave it this name, Satan, but that's just the energy of this opponent that's always testing us and tempting us for instant gratification. So the ego also in Kabbalah we learn is like our tikkun, our personal correction. So we have layers of negativity, of negative belief systems, of limited belief systems, all this crust around our soul that we need to peel off. Satan is different. Satan is the force that the Creator created to constantly make sure we don't deal with our correction, to constantly make it about blaming the outside and not taking personal responsibility. So to be clear, we all have personal negativity that we need to transform. Then there's a force that is influencing us and pushing us to not deal with that transformation.
And the purpose of that force is also divine. Yeah, right?
It's a positive.
It's not a punishment.
It's not a punishment. It's a positive force dressed as what seems like a negative force. It's doing its job. We need to do our job. So I wanted to break down some more aspects of this ego, the tikkun, some ways in detail that it can touch us. Number one, ego has two extremes. It says there's a fire and there's the ice of the ego. The ice of it, the one side of the ego is when you feel sadness or when you feel like you're not good enough. Any type of limited thought that is consuming you and telling you not to do something that deep down inside you kind of want to do or you would like to do or you feel you should do. This is actually the most dangerous manifestation of the ego because it causes you to be completely inside yourself. And it causes you to completely be consumed with just yourself. You add value to no one. The whole world is waiting to receive energy from you, and you're just consumed with, I'm not good enough. I'm not sure I can do it. What if I fail? Let me plan a little bit more. Let me get a little bit more advice. And you just stall. You're a staller.
Suspended
Stalin.
animation.
You're like Stalin. Staller.
Yes, exactly.
So this is actually the most dangerous form of ego. It's worse than the fire type ego, which we're going to talk about. The fire ego is when you feel you're better than everybody else. You have a good opinion about yourself, but it causes you to separate yourself.
Can I point something out before you move to the fire? 2 seconds?
Yeah.
The ice looks like low self-esteem.
Yeah,
right.
It looks like low self-esteem.
It looks like
low self-esteem is the biggest ego.
Right. That's what I wanted to point out. It's not a better ego.
Right.
Because
it's the worst ego.
It's literally a person who's stuck in that space is constantly thinking about themselves.
Right.
Constantly. They don't like me. What if I'm not good enough? What if I don't have what it takes? What if I mess it up? It's all about me, 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 me. And coming from that place, but pre-Kabbalah, I would say, I was shocked because I thought I was like the most humble person and nobody, lowly and whatever. And that didn't serve me just as much as, being an arrogant, pompous bleep.
So
would have
so
served-
the
would not
arrogant,
have
the
served me.
fire side, which is also all about me. They're both all about me. But here's the good thing about the fire side. The fire type of ego at least is out there doing something. The reason why the fire ego has an ego is because it sees how productive it is. It sees how great he is. So he has an ego and he thinks he's better than everybody else. But at least he's doing something.
Right.
So that's why
Any movement is forward movement.
at least there's forward movement there. The ice type of ego, the sadness, the laziness, the self-deprecating,
Stuck.
and how do you know like you're putting yourself down? Your words that come out of your mouth are very limiting words. They're very skeptical. You're always skeptical of yourself. You're skeptical of other people. You criticize yourself. You just don't have a positive mindset. You're suspicious. You think everybody's trying to take advantage of you.
That's a big one.
You think that people are trying to betray you. You think that people are judging you. It's a very just all it is it's not connecting you to your soul. So you're not moving forward. You're not connected to the divine when you're consumed with either the ice or the fire. Both are about you. So what's the solution? One solution is get things done. Just don't make it about you. Get things done, add value, and every time those thoughts come and pull you either way, forget about it. It's not about any of those things. It's just about work hard, give, share, and take the feedback, take the criticism, improve yourself, and then work, share. Work, share, take the feedback, work, share.
To me, that ice element, the ice side is very heavy.
Yeah.
Right? Ice is heavy. So when I work with people who have that challenge, we talk about just being light.
Yep.
I don't mean being light like the sun. I mean being light like the opposite of heavy. You know what? Do it quickly. Move on. Just take action. Jump from where you're at to like see what you can do to lift that heaviness, because it drags people down to the point of inaction.
Here's a question that relates to what you just said. Kim wrote, I get confused about this because in Kabbalah we've learned, right, in Kabbalah 1 class 1, pause and say what a pleasure. So we get upset, we get hurt, we get emotional about something. We're telling everybody to pause, and that reveals the light of the Creator. And she says, now that I pause more and I'm transforming my reactive behavior, I tend not to come back and say anything ever because I don't know if I'm being reactive. So here's how the ego works in two ways. Number one, when we're upset, the ego wants us to deal with it right away because it doesn't want to feel pain. Remember, ego is all about me. So I want to say something, I want to do something, I want to react, I want to be defensive, I want to fix the problem. Then we learn in Kabbalah, no. Transform the reaction. Pause. The light is with you. The Creator is with you. Don't worry. Have certainty. The Creator will take care of it. And people love this part because then they transform. Then they feel good. Now, there is the last part of this is you have to actually deal with the situation.
Right.
You have to confront the person. You have to actually tell the person, look, when you're not upset anymore, and you have to be strong about it. You have to say, that, I think that I didn't appreciate that. I don't think it's healthy for our relationship. I think you acting this way is not good for you.
Well, I had somebody who wrote to me on Instagram from a show we did a few weeks ago saying, they have the situation at work where someone is stepping all over them, making them feel, less than, small, obsolete, etc. How do I know what the proactive thing is to do? Because I don't want to start a fight. I don't want to be aggressive.
Rock the boat, yeah.
Right. So without so many details, we went back and forth a little bit. And I told her, I asked her if your inclination what is your inclination? To get stepped on, to be the doormat, or to be the aggressor? And she said, no, absolutely. I'd love to just put my head down and take it and then be upset about it and then show up to work tomorrow. So together we came to the conclusion that the balancing, she needed to lean over to the fire side and say, you know what, and I told her, even if you're going to go into the office ready to shout at the top of your lungs, it's going to come out as, excuse me, I'm sorry. It's not okay to speak that. Like, it's going to come out sounding like a mouse and not a tiger. So part of the recognition, like the answer to Kim is, the pause, what a pleasure, is to check in and see what's my impulse right now.
You got to always do the pause. The pause is the pause being selfish. Whether that selfishness is shutting down or lashing out, bottom line is when you're reactive, it's all about you. the pause is essential. The pause has to be there. I don't care what your tikkun is, fire, ice, ego, this, that. You're perfect. You're not. When you're emotional, when you're reactive, you got to do the pause. The pause is the check-in. Once you do the pause, it says that the light of the Creator is revealed to your soul and will guide you to the next step. The next step always is, what is the sharing thing to do that is not about me? So that might mean confront. That might mean confront in a hard way and a soft way. That might mean sending an email. That might mean sending a text. That might mean waiting 6 months before you say something. We don't know. But what we know is, once you check in and then you say to yourself, how can I now confront the situation or deal with the situation that will bring the most value, long-term value? That's when you start to know what to do. Otherwise, there's no other template.
Right.
The template is, stop making it about you. You're sad, it's about you. You're arrogant, it's about you. It's all like, that's the opponent. He's always trying to make it about you. Just add the value and move on. Add the value and move on.
One of the big expressions of the ego is doing things for energy, right? We talk about that a lot on different shows in different ways. The other thing I see happening in these times of Corona is that we can't get the energy we're used to getting. And, you know, it's easy to say, you know, I was a slave to my job and now the conditions of my job have changed, so I can't get that reinforcement, you know, respect, acknowledgement, and recognition from the workplace. I think that for a lot of us, needing that recognition, needing someone to say you're the best manager, needing someone to say you're the best parent, needing someone to say you're the best child, you're the best student, you're the best whatever it is. Sometimes it's I don't know, what other kinds of energy, external energy sources are people addicted to?
Being the best, being productive. The need to be productive is a big one. It's a sneaky one. If I don't feel productive today, I feel like ashamed and I feel like there's no point. Right.
There's a lot in this time for us to look at, both from the calendar point of view and the Corona point of view, which not a coincidence either, that to be able to pay attention to those addictions that I've had, right? And to me, when I talk to students one-on-one and we talk about where, you know, their ego, the question always is, how has listening, you're 37 years old, what wins? How have you won listening to this voice for the last 37 years?
How has it served you?
How has it served you? What, you know, if you've been so successful saying it's not fair, keep doing it, right? If you've been so successful saying no one loves me, keep doing it. But I promise you, if you're able to narrow down the voice of your opponent, it is not leading you to success. Quite the opposite. And that's why we want to hone in on, or, you know, maybe it's that judgmental voice. I think judging people is a big one. We get a lot of energy from it. It makes us feel better than everybody else, or worse than everybody else, but we get energy from it. And if you stop listening to the voice that tells you, those idiots, or, you know, who do they think they are, in your head having the conversation with them about what's wrong with them, never actually having it in reality, right. but that look at that voice. And I would recommend this week that everybody try and hone in on and give the baby a name. What is, if I could pick the number one song that my opponent plays in my life, what would it be? And what would my life look like without it? How desperate am I to take that judgment and transform it? How desperate am I to take that addiction to approval, or the victim, it's not fair, that whole justice-seeking opponent, justice-seeking ego. How desperate am I to transform it?
You know, our show is obviously free and complimentary, and we want to bring this value out to the world. Every show we try to bring services that we believe in that can help our listeners that we have no financial benefit in. We don't charge money or advertise or anything of the sort. We talk about Kabbalah1.com a lot, but as we didn't plan this, as you were talking, I know that one of our colleagues does a phenomenal job. He has a service within the Kabbalah Center. And
I asked him if he would join us for a show in a few weeks.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna plug him now, just because everyone that I've referred to him has, and all this money goes to charity, obviously. So It doesn't go to us. We don't make this money. This is money that goes towards spreading the wisdom of Kabbalah, making more resources affordable and free, even like the way this show is, out to as many people as possible in the world. So his name is Daniel. Daniel's a colleague, a teacher at the Kabbalah Center. And one of the big things that he focuses on now is within 45 minutes to help people identify and break through their ego, their tikkun, and limited belief systems. The prevailing thing when I work with students is so many limited beliefs come up, and each one deserves time to go deeper, understand why it's there, where did it come from, and break through it. And I think he's already met like 50, 60 people in the last couple months, and each one of them has said something phenomenal about him. I don't know. We didn't prepare this ahead of time. So
I think we should bring him to the show.
I want to bring him to the show in a week or two. If people are interested in his service, I know he especially in this time, he's offering something that makes it more affordable. People can Zoom with him or be with him over the phone. 45 minutes helps you break through. It's incredible. So I don't know if Ezra can throw the services link up there for Daniel.
I think just to that point, part of what the opponent wants us to think is it's too hard. I can't transform this. Transforming, breaking through. Right. I've had the ego for 37 years. How am I going to get rid of it? Right. That's the ego getting you to avoid the change and transformation. And nobody on this show, hopefully it's clear, nobody here is ever saying we're perfect, right? The whole, what Kabbalah teaches is that we're not here to be perfect. We're not, there isn't a finish line and we get there and we wait for the rest of you to catch up to us. It's evolution. It's fluid. It's constant movement and constant change. And when you look at it with that light attitude, it's not heavy. It's not arduous. It's not painful. Or there may be pain, but you even glide through the pain easily, lightly.
It's incredible. Just I know about myself every day. I thoughts and ideas come to me that I look at them and wait, that's not right. That's not based on what I've learned, because we learn Kabbalah. Kabbalah explains the infinity, the endless, like the max potential. That's what I love about Kabbalah. You learn it and you realize, okay, that's the max. That's the greatest we can be. Now, where am I? Where do I fall in that? And throughout the day, my opponent keeps telling me stupid things. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not in line with the infinity. That's not in line with the light of the Creator. That's not in line with what the Creator wants. And it's crazy. We're all bombarded by nonsense, limiting thoughts and desires. And this is why Kabbalah is so important, because it's our way to kind of escape out of that. Otherwise, you don't know what to compare it to. You live in an apple, you think your apple's the world, and you break out of that worm that breaks out of the apple realizes there's a whole nother world that I haven't even been exposed to. And the only way to realize what our limitations are and to break out of it and to gain the strength to do it is to surround yourself with people who are unlimited, to surround yourself with people who have a higher consciousness than you, to spend time with them, to learn from them, to call them, to serve them, to ask them how you can be closer to them, to learn the wisdom that is greater than you, to read books about people who have done greater things than you. You got to do all those things and surround yourself with positivity. That energy then just breaks you out of all your limited beliefs. Hire a mentor. I mean, I know personally, I have like 7-8 people that I go to, paid or friends or colleagues, that I know are more unlimited than I am in certain areas. And I just want to learn how to break free from this. We need the one-on-one attention as well. So surround yourself with this powerful energy. That's the only way you're going to be able to break out of this and gain the strength to do it.
And, as we close out the show, I want to remind everybody, the universe is setting us up this week so that we can focus on what we need to transform, where the ego is, which part of our ego needs tending to most, or needs to be tended to quickly. Whatever you do, do not be upset when you see it. This is a win. When you see your ego this week, you have won. It is not something to feel bad about, to beat yourself up about. Yeah, I had it for 37 years, and now that I see it, I can transform it. It doesn't have to define me. It doesn't have to weigh me down. The one of those other stupid tricks of the ego is, I think we started with this, now we can end it, you are not your mistakes, right? So if I recognize my ego, that is a win. That is not a loss.
Right.
It's I've done, if I can find my ego this week, I have done something right, not something wrong. And to be excited, it's a treasure hunt. Your ego is the treasure. You cannot remove the virus from your computer if you can't find it. You need to know the virus's name. So, by the way, maybe I shouldn't have gone to the virus. Bad analogy. But my point is, of course, this is something to celebrate, because when you find it, when you recognize it, and this week our desire should be to see it in all of its gloria.
Right.
Gloria.
Gloria?
Yes. My ego's name is Gloria, if you have to know the truth. In all its glory, embrace it. It's a win. You've succeeded, and now you can do the work. So, David, final thoughts?
Final thoughts, back to what we said before. There's no one way, there's no one solution, there's no one template. Know that it just comes down to you being and connected to two parts of you simultaneously. You're powerful. You have the light inside of you. It doesn't matter if you feel it or not. You have to earn it. You have to work towards that. Simultaneously, listen to the feedback of the world. Listen to the criticism. Don't let it get you down. Don't let it depress you, because then you're going to go to the sadness aspect of ego. Just listen, grow from it, be happy about it, and keep moving forward. Never connect to guilt. Never connect to sadness. It does nobody any good. And just keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. That's what the Creator wants from you. Creator wants nothing else besides you moving forward, growing, changing, and connecting to your happiness.
So, as always, we are here Mondays, 10 a.m. Pacific, to share with you this wisdom. But you can find us not only on Facebook, we are on YouTube, IGTV, and all the places that you find your podcasts. We go back during the week to check your comments, so that if you do post something, know that we're reading it and we'll get back to you. If you don't want to put your questions or feedback in the comments, you can email us at energyboost@kabbalah.com. We'll be bringing Daniel, I think.
Is it next week or the week after?
No. I think it might be in 3 weeks, but we will bring Daniel. And if there's other
guests. Someone's asking about codes, that we always give codes out. We're going to ask Daniel to give a special promotion for our audience, and we'll even have it as soon as next week, even though he won't be on the show next week.
We'll see what we can do to take care of you. As always, it's your sharing of the show that really makes it as powerful as it is. So please continue to share, to comment, to be a part, and we'll see you next week on the Weekly Energy Boost.